All right, session 5. And as I was saying, we have an ambitious schedule today because in spite of the fact that we spent, I guess, somewhere close to 20 hours already talking about this one subject, I have not even begun. There's so much more to cover here. So we're going to pick up the pace a little bit today. I guess you're surprised that, well, you thought the pace was already picked up, right? But we're going to pick it up a little bit more because we're going deeper, 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 deeper. So put on those thinking caps. Last time we explored the third object of anger. Remember I said that one of the keys to managing your anger, for that matter, one of the keys for managing any of the negative states of mind is that you first must become aware of it. Is that correct? So the first step was to be able to become simply aware of the fact that you are in a state of anger or in a state of greed or in a state of lust, etc., etc., etc. After that had been done, then the next step was to focus on the object, right? To locate that object. Who are you angry at? What are you greedy for? What are you lusting after, etc., etc.? What are you attached to? So, in that genre, we will continue today. Now, we've only talked about the first 3 categories of anger in some detail, or objects of your anger. Remember, we talked about our anger at others, others' anger at us, and our anger at ourselves. We still have to cover abstract anger. We still have yet to cover anger at the absent other, because these are also objects of our anger. Very often you'll find you're not angry at anybody in particular. You're just angry. That's abstract. Okay? God, I hope this comes off. Let me test these markers. Okay, well, I got it right. Okay. Abstract. You're not angry at anyone in particular. You're just angry. What we call you have an attitude toward life. Some people are angry at God because, God, why did you give me this kind of wife? Or why don't you give me any kind of wife? Or why did I have to wind up with a husband like this? Or why did my children turn out like this? God, why you make my body handicapped? Or so forth, so on. So very often our anger, the object of our anger is at our destiny and our fate, at our karma, at our situations and circumstances, why this had to happen to me. And when you don't know how to manage that anger appropriately, of course you will manage it inappropriately every time. The net result will be that you will injure yourself psychologically and emotionally. So we have to begin to even locate the abstract objects of our anger. All men are dogs. Now, this is abstract anger, okay? You can't be angry at all men because you haven't had a relationship with all men. What we've done, we've taken one incident and have generalized from that, right? And applied it across the board. You're angry at all white people. Now, this is irrational. First of all, you've not been in a relationship with all white people, you see? And therefore, you have a hard time dealing with this abstract anger. So we'll talk about that as we go into the second half of this series. You have enough background now to start being able to pinpoint and appreciate the technologies and the techniques we're going to discuss as we go into that. So that's a little bit about abstract anger. And the 5th object of our anger that we must learn to manage is our anger at the absent other. There are people who you are angry at who are no longer a part of your life. They're absent from your life. But your anger is still here. Some man did something to you 20 years ago. You're angry at them. Never have processed that. Have suppressed it. Been carrying around for 20 years. Absolutely destroying your present capacity for peace of mind. And it is madness, and it will drive you mad. Some of us are angry at our parents because they didn't give us the thing we wanted on Christmas when we were 10 years old, and we're angry about it today. And that undercurrent is still there, impacting in the relationship that we may have with that particular parent. You're angry because maybe your dad whooped you for something you didn't do 15 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago. And that anger has never been processed out of it. It's there at a subconscious level, okay? It's still cruising and moving through your mind-body system, determining and influencing your relationship with your parent. You don't like your daddy. But why don't you like your daddy? Because you have some anger somewhere that you haven't processed. So we'll be looking at that as we go along too. But before we go any further, I want to pick up a little bit of where we left off last time. I didn't get a chance to talk to you about early recollections and birth order. And we have to pause and say something about that because these particular things will give you a lot of insight into why you are the way you are. It increases your self-knowledge. And remember, that's the whole foundation of wisdom. It's knowledge that you have of yourself. We don't count academic knowledge. You can read tons of these books. You will have a lot of information, of course. But the information will be secondhand. It will be borrowed. And what's more, it won't be any information about you. And if you don't know anything about yourself, then fundamentally you are ignorant. I don't care how many degrees you have. You're ignorant. So we have to increase our knowledge of ourselves if indeed we wish to be wise. Such has been the teachings of all masters and all great gurus from time immemorial. So we want to talk some about how to go about acquiring this knowledge of oneself, which is so important for our peace of mind and our happiness. I want to bring to your attention that all of us was born into a family. I shouldn't even have to bring that to your attention. We all know that. But you forget about it, right? And this family that you were born into, you entered that family, and your first task in life was to adapt into this family. We'll put a traditional family up here. Unfortunately, there's a lot of them that there's no longer a husband there. There's maybe no longer a mother. I should put father and mother. But let's say if such families still existed, okay? And what you want to understand is that the order of your birth into this family will go a long way in shaping your whole attitude toward life. Your attitudes and experiences and the conclusion that you derive from those experiences within the context of your family of origin very often is carried with you into the larger context of the world. Very often you have reached mistaken conclusions about life based on your experience within the context of your family of origin. And therefore, when you emerge from your family of origin, you experience difficulty in dealing with the tasks of life. Who remember what the tasks of life were? Those of you who are in search of a certificate, those, I know some of you in here said, Bhagwan, I want a certificate, so I hope that you know some of these answers. But we do know that there was 5 fundamental tasks of life. We talked about work, earning a livelihood, etc. Right? We talked about cooperation, right? Developing a sense of social interest in others, trying to develop the ability to live a life at the level of contribution as opposed to simply from the useless side. Well, we talked about love, did we not? We talked about the relationship to oneself. And of course, we talked about your own mortality. Preparing yourself for your own demise. These are the tasks of life. And usually all of our skills to deal with these tasks are acquired here within the context of our family of origin. And if the preparation was inadequate here, it will be reflected here. When you reach adulthood and no longer are protected by the cocoon of your family. So you need to understand a lot of things about you and your relationship to your family if you want to get some deep insights into what's going on in your life now. Does that make sense to you? Let's look at a little of that. You have to realize that, for instance, Bilal and I are brothers. Wade and I are brothers. Emma and I are brothers and sisters. It will give you the illusion that came from the same family. We did not. We had same parents. Each of us came from an entirely different family. Because when Bilal entered this family, there was already one brother in there. I use my own family. We have an older brother named Ernest. Before Ernest, let me back up some. Let me make this easy for you. Let's talk in terms of the elder, the eldest child, the firstborn. We have some firstborns in here?
Yes.
Show them hands. Bob, was you firstborn? Just one. All right. The father and the mother, prior to the birth of the firstborn, constitutes the dynamics involved in the family system. They have their own relationship. The family is already in existence. They are family. They are husband and wife, and there's certain dynamics going on between them. Right? Then enters that firstborn. Okay? The first is that they have to adapt to this environment. Unique. All right? The second-born. Does the second-born enter into the same environment that the first-born entered into? No. There's already new dynamics that has been created. The second-born now enters into an entirely different dynamics that is now made up of the father, the mother, and the older sibling, and has to adapt to that situation, so forth and so on. You can imagine in our family where there was 11, right? By the time the last one got in here, my baby sister, Inez, she came into an entirely different family. In fact, some of us had already exited from the system. So no two people, no two brothers and sisters are ever born into the same family in terms of the psychodynamics that are going on within that family. This is very important because it gives you an insight now into why people approach life and live life a certain way. We all have what in psychology, at least in the Adlerian system of psychology, is called a lifestyle. We have a style of approaching life that is unique to each one of us. And a lot of our lifestyle is based on the experiences that we had in the process of adaptation to our families of origin. Okay? So we each have a unique lifestyle. Moreover, a lifestyle fundamentally is our meaning. The meaning that we give to life. In our early developmental stages, we had early experiences in our childhood, what we call early recollections. But these early recollections really contain our conclusions about ourselves, our conclusion about others, and our conclusion about the world, about life. But they are conclusions about life within the context of the family. All of the conclusion that you reached in early childhood about life was based primarily on the dynamics that were going on in your family. Please make a note of that. Your family was not the world, but it is the world when you're small. Yes?
So if one of these said the eldest and the firstborn like a year apart, you think that year make a difference?
Sure, birth order makes a big difference.
Even if it's only like a year?
Even if it's only like a year. Because the dynamics are different. The dynamics are different, and when we go into birth order, you'll see this, because you're going to get a good insight for those of us who are still involved in the parenting process. You're going to get a very good insight, because each one of these children coming into the family system is confronted with a whole different set of dynamics, and your parenting will have to be customized accordingly. Not only must it be customized, you must be very perceptive, because you have to be very, very conscious of what's confronting that child. If you try to parent from a cookie cutter philosophy, you're going to mess it up every time. I think you will appreciate that as we go on. I'm trying to set this up front for you now, and you have to bear with me because I'm trying to throw you a lot of stuff, and we only have such a short time to get it in here. So, as I was saying, these conclusions that we reach in our formative years, in our childhood, no later than the age of 8, these conclusions that we've come to about ourselves, about others, and about the world, constitute our definition of the meaning of life. We form our philosophy of life based on that experience. And then usually what happened, we never edited it again. And so very often we approach adult life with the philosophy of an 8-year-old person. In spite of all your education, all subsequent experiences now are interpreted within the context of these conclusions that you've already have reached. It is very interesting as we begin to explore it. I hope that you will also begin to see the subtlety of how all of this works. So we have this meaning of life. And your life always follow your meaning. The way you move through life, the things you do, the way you do them, the attempts the goals you set, the ambitions you have, all follow whatever you have determined as the meaning of life. Your actions follow that. Most of us are totally unaware of it. Totally unaware of it. And very often, when we look at other people, their actions and behavior look like nonsense. It looks crazy, in fact. And we wonder, why in the world is so-and-so doing that? It don't make sense. Right? It doesn't make sense to you because you have a different meaning of life. It is perfectly logical for the person. Say, for instance, that one of the conclusions that I've reached in my childhood regarding the feeling of security, the feeling of safety, would be that I have to always get on top of people, higher than people, get above the situations, things of that nature. Otherwise, I feel inferior or something. Now, I'm just making up an example. And suppose you see me one day in my classroom with the other students, and you see Leonard climbing up on top of the cabinets in the room and sitting up at the top. You would say, this boy's crazy, right? Because what is he climbing up there sitting at the top? But it's perfectly consistent with my meaning, right? If in order for me to feel equal to everybody else, I need to be higher than them, then that's logical for me to climb up on the thing. It makes perfect sense. So it is consistent. Your behavior is always consistent with whatever your meaning of life is. The problem is, boy, we're not very sure what our meaning of life is. But in spite of that, your life is flowing like that. We'll come back to that a little later as we move through the workshop. Today, I just wanted to try to start getting some of these fundamental observations on the table so that we can begin to appreciate them. So what we find then is that the order of your birth into your family of origin and the early recollections that you are carrying with you from your childhood experiences constitute the determining factors in most of your behavior. I would say almost 100%, but nothing is 100%. So I'll compromise, 99.9% of your behavior is flowing out of those early experiences. Now let's look a little closer at this birth order first, okay? Because it's very important. Again, we have the family system. There's the father, there's the mother, okay? They've already created a family. The dynamics are going on. They have a relationship. They have values and all these other things. The firstborn comes into this family system. Let's see what the firstborn experiences, okay? It's really an interesting thing. We found that with problem children, the majority of children with problems are firstborns. It's interesting. They constitute the highest categories. The second highest category of children that we find with problems are the last ones. So there seems to be something very interesting in the first becoming last and the last becoming first. But in any event, I think as we look at this, you'll begin to appreciate why that is the case. Well, the first thing that we all got to get is attention. These are the goals of behavior. All behavior has goals. Not meaning. Goals. Goals. One of them is attention and service. And all of us need attention. We have to give somebody attention in order for them to service us. Naturally. And so when the child is born into the family, usually the first most important bond is with the mother. That is the first relationship. That's why the mother is so vital to not only the psychological health of that child, but in a sense of the whole world of man, because all have mothers. And if mothers do not develop healthy psychologies in these children, then how can the society reflect that? There's no way. So that first bond is with the mother. That is the child's first area of interest. And it's how to get attention and service. How to get love, things of that nature. Immediately, this creates some competition between that child and the father. Because the child has got to compete with the father for the mother's attention. Usually what happens, however, is that the firstborn has no problem. They get all the attention from the father and they get all the attention from the mother. They're usually spoiled. They usually are. Because they're the only child. And they are the king of the throne. And they have the love and doting attention of both parents coming in. Right? They're in bliss. Right? They get very comfortable until the second child is born. Now they enter into the system. Right? Number two. Now the dynamics have instantly shifted in this system. Now the mother's got to put her attention here, don't she? Right? What happens to the firstborn? How do they feel it? Right, they feel dethroned. So now a competition has to start to take place. And that firstborn is trying to hold on to its position as the center and focus of the family. And now there's another child. And if this firstborn has not been adequately prepared by the parents, right, for the arrival of the second child, then this first child is going to do everything in their power, aren't they, to keep the secondborn from taking their position in the family system. And guess what the secondborn going to do? Going to do everything in its power, her power, to get the position. Normally the secondborn is far more aggressive than the firstborn in the family. They're far more aggressive. They are more ambitious, right? And all of these things. Because they're trying to get his spot. Some of them do get it. And when the firstborn loses his spot, the firstborn very often becomes very bitter. And whoever dethroned. If it's the second child, there might be a third child that comes in. The thirdborn may come in, right? And dethrone. Maybe the second one didn't dethrone him. The second one is usually caught up in competition, aggressiveness, you know. Yes?
So what if it automatically goes from the firstborn to the lastborn?
It can happen. Each family circumstance is unique. That's why I'm just giving you kind of general things here, but you have to really sit and look and see what actually happened in your family. It can happen like that. You know, the lastborn, very often, that comes into a family, let's say the youngest child that comes into a family is usually also spoiled. Hence the similarity. Usually the firstborn is spoiled and the lastborn is spoiled. Because the lastborn now is getting the attention of the whole system. All eyes are focused on it. It's getting all of the pampering, all of the indulgences. And what normally happens to the last born person is that either they become the greatest achiever in the whole family system because they got the help of everybody else in it. Everybody is helping that last born, right? You're giving them money to go to school, you buy them clothes, especially if there's a big gap in a large family where the eldest is 15 years older than the last born. So by the time the last born is going through their various developmental stages, somebody in the family got jobs, they're grown, they got their own family, they're looking out for that last born. So that last born get all the clothes, gets everything, because everybody is helping that last born. And very often that last born either will be a high achiever and will go further than any other sibling in the system, or it tends to go in the opposite direction. The amount of overindulgence that last born has been subjected to can very often dysfunction the last born, because they've been so used to everybody doing stuff for them, they become incapable of becoming independent. They lose their independence. They can't do anything. They very often become what we call crown princes or princesses. They want everybody to do everything for them. That's been how they've been conditioned. They expect now, when they emerge from their family system, that the world will now do everything for them, and it doesn't happen. And they have a hard time adjusting to reality outside of the family system. So it can go either way, right? But it's usually in this one of the or the other, unless there's been a lot of awareness on behalf of the mother and father in those systems. Yes.
So is the second born also called a middle child? Is a middle child the children that are in between the oldest and the youngest?
Yes, very often you see, it depends on the birth orders. Let's say in the years, let's say the firstborn is 3 years older than the secondborn, and the secondborn is 10 years older than the thirdborn, and then you got a fourth and a fifth, and they're spaced 2 years apart. Or you'll get different systems within the same family. You may get several firstborns in that family. You see my point? Several children may take the position of the firstborn. They have the same experience. It is interesting to note the only child usually have a lot of the same experiences as the firstborn. The firstborn has the experience of the only child, and then they lose it. And one of the great fears for the only child is that some other children will come into the family system and dethrone them. They're terrified. They don't want no brothers and sisters in many instances. You see? Because that's more unnecessary competition. Right? One of the other things you will notice in these firstborns is that they like to be with people who are older than them. They develop, and the reason is simple, because they cease to identify with the rest of the siblings. Very often, what happened with that firstborn, the parents in that system now start getting this firstborn to get the baby bottle, get the baby diapers. You know, they start participating in the parenting process. Authority and control becomes very important to a firstborn person. Very important. Because particularly if they've been dethroned. If they've been dethroned, then they know what can happen to them when they lose their power and control. Right? If they haven't been dethroned, they attribute it to the fact that they kept their power and control. In either case, power, control, and authority is very important. Usually you will find the firstborn is very authoritarian. Very much so. I want to exhaust all of these dynamics here, but I wanted to give you some of them so that you can get an idea of why you are the way you are. You see, a lot of that had to do with the family system that you were born into, the dynamics that went on in that family system, what order you were in that family system, and the meanings that you assigned to your experiences within the context of that family system. And all of these factors now begin to shape your lifestyle, the style that you live, the way you approach life. And you have to understand that. There's a lot of other interesting scenarios. Say, for instance, if, well, before I talk about the dysfunction of the family, let me give you some other unique situations, combination, because here we have not talked anything about gender yet. You about that, that's why I said we better stop, right? All right. Let's say, for instance, give you an interesting one. Some of the most difficult birth orders occur where there is a single gender surrounded by opposite genders. These are very difficult situations. Let's say, for instance, especially for boys. So Emma, you pay attention to this, okay? All right. Emma has almost exactly her situation, so she can almost tell us how accurate the theory is. If you got a boy in a family with all girls, okay, and if the order is of birth is that if the boy is the eldest, okay, he's going to have a good shot at surviving, okay? Because he probably would have been spoiled, he would have gotten all that attention, and it's very hard for a girl to dethrone, you know, because they're different genders, right? So he might make it. However, if that boy is born, say in the middle, then he will catch it from both sides. Let's give an example. Do you mind if I use your example?
Go ahead.
All right. With my nephew, now there's 2 girls above him, right? 2 girls above him and 1 girl below him. So he catch hell from top and bottom. Okay? This boy will go to the extremes. Either he will become very defensive all the time, or he will become effeminate. Those are the only 2 possibilities. If he don't become effeminate, he'll become very defensive because he's fighting for his turf. Okay? He's fighting to try to hang on, you see. He's living in a household that is totally feminine. And if he's in touch with his masculinity, he is fighting, he's defending, and he's not going to let none of these women tell him nothing. Okay? Right? They ain't going to tell him nothing. And he's very quick to respond, to defend all the time against even what is not a threat to his masculinity. If he thinks there's a threat to his masculinity, right, he's going to defend. And it becomes very hard for him to develop the skills of cooperation. Okay? Which can become a problem later on. So if you have a son surrounded by girls, you need to be aware of that. If you have a daughter that is surrounded by boys, same thing applies. You know, either she's going to become a tomboy, right, or the B word, right? Okay? But the idea is that she has to defend. So you have to understand all of these things. You have to see where you are at. So much for birth orders. Again, we will, from time to time, come back to this. But I wanted to begin to get it out there. It will be very good homework for you to do, is to look at your birth order in the family and try to replay in your mind the dynamics of your family. If you can't do it, you might want to try to make an appointment with me. Very often we have to almost do it one-on-one. It's kind of difficult to do it on your own if you've not done this before because you don't have the objectivity. You've not been there before. So you have to go with me since I've been down that road, okay? And I'll hold your hand and I'll point you out to yourself. All right? But coming back to this family system. A family system is like any other system. It has its needs. Right? And those needs have to be supplied to the whole family. So let's say again in your family, let's say the father was gone, right? And that firstborn comes in here, right? And this dynamics is going on here. But very often you find that firstborn, particularly if it's a boy, has to take on the role of dad. He becomes a husband/son to his mother. It's very interesting. And he begins to develop a kind of edible relationship with all other men coming into this system. If the mom is dating this man that comes into the system, this boy will challenge him. He will develop an edible complex. You understand? If it's a family that's got multiple children, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 children there, and let's say if something happened to the mom, somebody in the system got to slot up and do the stuff that mom needs to do for the family system. It's the phenomena of the man-child or the woman-child. You see them all the time, don't you, on the street? They're about this tall and they have 2 babies on their hip, parenting, etc. Because in that system, there's been dysfunction somewhere. And that child has got to slot up. And very often they resent it because it deprives them of their child. And very often they become problem children or problem people down the road. So you begin to get a lot of insight into a lot of the behavior that you are encountering as well as the behavior that you are putting out there. When you get some insight into how these dynamics have shaped your psychology. I mentioned to you earlier about early recollections. And one of the things that you will find about early recollection is that these conclusions that you have come to about yourself, about your others, those others include your siblings, don't they? Right? All of your conclusions about your siblings or some family member somewhere. And the so-called world, which is really just your family. All these conclusions that you come to about that constitutes your attitudes. You form attitudes. We all do. Problem is not that we have attitudes. The problem is your mistaken attitudes. Right attitudes are functional. They're good to have when they're accurate. We need accurate attitudes. It's the mistaken attitudes that we are carrying with ourselves that contributes to the conflict that we have with other people. Let's back up a moment and give you an example of that. Remember when we talked about the first object of your anger at others? Remember I pointed out that one of the attitudes that we carry is our attitudes toward what constitutes fairness. Remember I pointed out that whenever we have the perception that someone is treating us unfair, right, we get angry. All of us do. The thing that we have to understand is that our concept of what is fair is unique to us. There is no such thing as absolute fairness. Has never existed on the planet, never will exist on the planet. Fairness, like time, space, is relative. Do I mean, therefore, that we can become anarchists? No. But I'm simply telling you that you have to realize the relativity of the whole concept of fairness and injustice. And what happens and what makes it so difficult to manage your anger at other people, particularly when you are having the experience that you've been treated unjustly, is that your assumption is that they're working from the same value system that you are. They are not. They're working from their value system. And from that value system, there's nothing unfair with me stealing your car. You got a car, I don't have a car. I should have your car. It's fair to them. And you have to understand that, all right? Otherwise, you're going to be angry every 12 seconds of your life because somebody's going to always be treating you unfairly. What I, in fact, like for you to do as some homework, I call it housework. I want you to do some housework, this kind of work we talk about here at the House of Rock. If you want to do some interesting housework, I'd like for you to just measure the number of times next week you have the feeling of being treated unfair. And I've asked Bilal to give me this thing because I wanted to give you a technique here, and I'm going to talk about this later. This is a counter. I don't know where you buy them. It's just a counter. And you just click it, right? And all I want you to do is every time you have a feeling that you've been treated unfairly, right? Count it. That's all I want you to do. I want you to do nothing else. All right? And you don't need to analyze it and not do anything yet. Just count it. You'll find something very interesting and we'll process it next time we get together. Just count the times you become unfair. You should have that feeling. Okay? You'll see something very interesting. More about this later. I'll explain a little bit more about this technique. Now, in any event, these attitudes come from your early recollections, your memories. us have memories. If you would pause for a moment now and solicit your earliest recollection, take just a second and just let it come up into your awareness. You need not edit it. You need not try to make sense of it. Just let it come up into your awareness and hold it. Become aware of what that is. We'll do some work with it later. Okay? But even as I talk, if it's a little slow coming, just let it come on up. Don't pay no attention to me. Finding the early recollection is going to be much more important. Your memories contain these conclusions that you reached when you were a child. And the very fact that you can still remember it means that it is still important to you, the lessons contained in that memory. And at a subconscious level, they are driving and dictating your behavior. Your memory is like the part that programs your behavior. It contains your attitudes, your values, your beliefs, all of that stuff. And those conclusions that you will find buried in those early memories were reached by you at a time when you had no PhD. You didn't even have no education. You had no worldly experience. You had none of all this good knowledge. And many of them are mistaken. Is the conclusion that you reached that because so-and-so did so-and-so to yourself, et cetera, et cetera. Your definition of what is and is not unfair was formed when you didn't know it. I have a real sophisticated concept of what constitutes justice. And it still influences your behavior. Do anyone care to venture an early recollection and be my guinea pig?
My first recollection was when my father died.
First recollection was when your father died. How old were you, Sandra?
I was 4.
4 years old. All right. And the recollection was that her father died.
I remember the ambulance coming.
You remember the ambulance coming. What else? Tell us. You remember the ambulance coming?
And I was with a neighbor,
Mm-hmm.
and the ambulance came and they went into the fire department came and they went into the bedroom.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember them coming out
Mm-hmm.
and going away, taking him away.
And taking them away. All right. Now, Sandra, you came to a lot of conclusions as a result of that experience. It will be good to examine them, and I'll try to stay on the superficial level because the best place to do it is personally and privately to get maximum benefit from it. But notice, first of all, she remembers seeing stuff. She's a visual person, first of all. She saw it. She remembered the color and all of that stuff. Right? So there's something creative and artistic in it, right? The people in the event was her father, right? And the neighbor, was that a male or female? Okay. So it was her father, so that's a male. And the neighbor was a female. What do you remember about the neighbor?
I just remember her standing there with me.
Being with you? Was she consoling you or just there with you?
No, she was just there, and she seemed to be nervous.
And she was nervous too, or concerned, exhibiting some concern. What kind of conclusion what was her conclusion that she came to about that female neighbor? That she was concerned, right? That she was concerned too about your dad, right? And women are maybe concerned about things like this in life. There was no other men around. But in any case, we'll let you tell us. What were you feeling?
I was feeling fear.
In what way?
Because I didn't know what was going on. I didn't understand it.
She didn't understand it. Do you still become frightened when you don't understand things? You never outgrew that. That which you don't understand frightens you. If I could be something like that, anything can happen. See this association? Fear. What conclusion did you come to about, let's say, life?
It's uncertain.
Life is very uncertain. You don't know what's going to happen. Right? And so she had to adapt. Little 4-year-old Saint had to adapt to a world that was really uncertain. did she adapt? She probably began to be very cautious. Were you very cautious as a child? Didn't take notice, right? Looking for certainty, trying to eliminate all unknown factors, right? She started developing a style of moving in this uncertain life. Life became uncertain, and when life is uncertain, you got to get a style to deal with that uncertainty, right? What conclusion did you come to about yourself?
Was there something wrong with me that this was all going on? Did I do something wrong?
That you might have somehow, shape, form, or fashion been a cause of that. Because why? Children are egocentric. Meaning simply that they think they're the cause of everything that goes on around them. They're the center of everything. Very often you'll find that the parents get divorced, the child thinks they caused the divorce. They don't know that the parents didn't get along, fighting like hell, never were in love with each other, etc. But the child thinks dad leaving because he don't like me, somebody did. So here you have this little innocent girl whose father's died or whatever, and she think maybe she caused it. Was it something I did? Maybe I didn't hug her, maybe I didn't, she don't know, she confused. But somehow she has the feeling it's my fault, right? And if you killed your father, that makes you what? What kind of person are you? Bad. I'm bad, I'm no good. We call that feeling that of being bad and no good what? Self-what? The opposite of self-respect. Guilt start coming in, all kinds of things. Right? There's a lot more there, we won't go into it now. But I just wanted to give you an idea of some of the things that going on here. Anybody else have an early recollection? Okay, wait. I know all your early recollections. So I don't even know if this is fair, huh? Okay.
All right. Mine were like when I was 4 years old.
4 years old.
And people were telling me the police was going to get me. And they had different figures that they would use to scare me and terrorize me, like a little midget that was a pepper salesman, the Wahoo man, creature from the Black Lagoon.
Creature from the Black Lagoon.
My cousins were like older and would pretend like they were cutting me and stabbing me because they said I was bad.
Now, he's 4 years old. This is an early recollection. First thing we have to understand about that, the very fact that he still has the recollection means that the conclusions that he reached from that recollection still informs how he moved through life, how he approached life, how he deal with it, right? He describes an incident. How did he feel from this early recollection? What was his feeling? How did it make him feel? Well, he was scared, right? That's one feeling, right? Fear, right? What else? Was there anything else?
He felt helpless.
Yeah, he could feel helpless, right? Yeah, powerless. What are some of the other things that he might feel? And we can ask him, because we don't know. Yeah, he's here. Was there some anger too? Somewhere? Why they scaring me? Why these people always scaring me? Why they doing this to me?
Not at that time.
Not at that time? So he's not aware of that. He focused more on that they scared me, the fear of it all, and the powerlessness of it all. What else do you think you were feeling at that time? All right, well, you just got these two to work with what we got, because it bubbles up as you go into it. And and who are the people involved in this thing here? You said the Wahoo man, right?
Police.
Police, right?
A midget.
A midget.
A white midget is that?
A white midget is that. Okay. What conclusions did you come to about the world as a result of that experience?
Dangerous.
Dangerous. The world is dangerous. Well, don't that make sense? If you're scared of a 4-year-old boy all the time, isn't he going to conclude that the world that it's dangerous? Life is dangerous, isn't it? Because any minute now, a Wahoo man can come here and get you, or a creature from the Black Lagoon. And I think Bilal had a lot to do with that. If you were wondering, I think I'm innocent. I think that sounds more like the work of Bilal. Right? And so forth and so on. But what the conclusion he came to about life and the world in general, that life and the world, even your neighborhood, right, is dangerous. That outside of this family, there's danger. What kind of conclusions did you come to about the other people in this early recollection? The people that were scared. And
I just stayed out of their way. Like
so,
what I
so what
could-
conclusion did he come to if he had the action of staying out of their way?
Avoidance.
Right? He was avoiding them, but he had avoided them because why? What was the conclusion? He was afraid of them? Right? Well, what conclusion had he came to about these people?
He didn't trust them.
Right? That these people can't be trusted. He didn't trust them. We have to work for it. What kind of conclusion? Because he did an action, right? He had a behavior, right?
He
He had
inflicts
some
pain
goal.
also, so he doesn't want the experience of pain, so
Right.
he flees.
He fled from those people,
For
right?
pain,
He
yes.
stayed away from. But I want to know what conclusion did he come up to about the people? Right. Right. These are dangerous people. Right? These are dangerous people. We stay away from them. When those people will come, what would you do? When Gene and Jack would come, what would you do? I know a little bit about it. Maybe I'm not as innocent as I pretend. When Gene and Jack came, what would you do?
Hide under the bed.
Right, you run in that bed because they're dangerous people, weren't they? Right? Dangerous people. So he started having a conclusion that there are people out here like Gene and Jack who are males, incidentally.
They would pretend like they were cutting my neck with a knife.
Yeah.
They pull out a big knife, long knife, pretend like they're cutting my neck and tell me I'm bleeding.
Yes.
And I was dying and all of that. Every week.
Every week. Every week this nonsense. Was there a lot of stress on young Wade? Was he under some stress?
Yeah.
He was under some fear and all that stuff? And his parents didn't do anything to stop this nonsense. Did he feel he had the protection of his parents? Did he have some question about why are these people protecting me? These men trying to kill me. Why they laughing? Right? And he had to adapt to all of this stuff. He had to find a style to adapt to this kind of stuff. And avoidance became one of them, right? If nobody was coming to his rescue, what else could the kid do? Let me just flee. We avoid. Right? And how old were you when you stopped avoiding these people?
Gene, I saw him when I was on the police department.
How old were you?
I was in my 20s. He pulled the same trick.
He tried to
He
do
pulled
the
his
same
knife out. I
trick.
said, I got a gun now.
Right? So these things can be there a long time. But it was males in there. You avoided males. Did you find yourself able to develop a close, intimate relationship with males as you grew up outside of the family system?
Once I checked them out, and they didn't try to scare me.
You have to first make sure that they weren't trying to scare you or harm you, right? So your approach then became very cautious in your relationship with them. Careful. Watching your back. What about, and the conclusion that you came to about yourself?
I always look before I leave.
Well, okay, that's still your strategy. That was a part of your strategy that you were dealing with. To this dangerous environment that you was in. But what conclusion did you come to about you?
That they can scare me real easily.
Right, that they can scare you real easy. What kind of people can be scared real easy?
People that are frightful.
People that are frightful. What kind of people are frightful? What do we call people who are scary and frightful?
Timid.
Timid? Yeah, that's one. Timid? That's the word. Coward. You think little Wade somewhere in his mind start coming to the conclusion that fundamentally I'm a coward?
Yeah, that makes you shame, but it's
Right.
a situation he couldn't even control.
He couldn't even do anything about it. It was a shaming experience for us. Right? Must have been very painful. Very painful. So again, there's more there. We won't go beyond that. But again, I want you to begin to see how these conclusions that he reached about others, about himself, about the world, begin to shape his whole style. These conclusions were parts of his meaning of life. And it informs our behavior. And what we have to do is to edit it. We have to edit it. But I'm saying all of these things here because I want to set you up for something that I think will give you even more insight. And again, we have not yet even exhausted it. Maybe let's do one more early recollection. Because I want you to get the hang of this. And if you really are very, very keen on exploring the territories of your own subconscious, there's always two ways. One is your dreams, and one is your early recollections. And of course, birth order. These are the three things you want to know about anybody you're going to plan on marrying. All right? Know their dreams, know their early recollection, and know that birth order. All right? Because you may spare yourself a lot of misery. You have an early recollection.
Yes, I do, but it repeats. I mean, I could tell about what time my father would be coming home from work, or whatever was on television.
How old are you?
I was probably between 3 and 4.
Okay.
And depending on what was on television, whether it be Mighty Mouse or Lone Ranger, I don't remember the lineup, but I would be able to tell that my father would be home shortly, and when this program would end, I would go to the window and watch him pull in the driveway. He used to stay policeman at the time. And those were fun memories.
Okay, those fun. All memories don't have to be bitter. There's memories that are fun. Now, and let's look at that because there's certain conclusions that you come to, right? Already that was fun, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that was the feeling that it produced in you, right?
Mm-hmm. It was a feeling of security too, because
right.
my dad came home same time every day. I looked forward to it, and I knew it would be dinner time. And I had a brother 18 months younger than I was, so he was probably only about a year and a half or so. And there was a nice warm feeling of security.
Right, it made you feel safe.
Yes.
Right? It made you feel safe. And by watching that TV, you had learned a way to predict the events that contribute to your security. You like that, right? Do you still like to try to look for indices to predict your security?
Yes, I do.
Right?
I never thought about it before.
Yes.
Yes, I do.
Yes. And when you can't find something to predict your security and safety on, how you feel there?
Very insecure.
Very insecure.
Very insecure. I'm not one to venture off into things that don't seem secure for me.
That you can't.
Job adventure. I've probably been doing the same thing at my company for the last 20 years because I'm comfortable there. It's a sense of security. And there are many people come and tell me, you have much more talent than what you're doing. How come you don't venture off? Because I feel comfortable doing what I'm doing. And I love the feeling of security.
Sure. Nothing wrong with that. It's just that you begin to understand how this style of yours and where it came from and what is the need of its meaning there. And in her early recollection is her father, right? Who else in the early recollection? Anybody else besides the TV? You probably got a home computer now, right? Are you on the internet too? Just your father, right?
My father, my mother.
In the memory?
Well, no, not really in the memory. She's there, but not there.
She's in the background.
She's in the background.
Right.
Yes.
So, are you a daddy's girl?
Yes.
Very
Only
much.
girl.
Only girl, right? Right. So you're a daddy's girl. All right. We could kind of get that idea because the dominant figure in her early recollection is her dad, not her mom. Isn't that interesting? Right? And remember I told you that the first task of the child is usually aimed at developing that with the mother. Not to say that your relationship with your mother is bad, but she seemed to have bonded tight.
My mom was the person I went to for nurturing.
Yes. Full clothes, the basics.
But for security, it was there.
Yes. All right. And that's interesting. Now, what conclusions did you come to about yourself from that experience?
Well, you know, this is also new. I'm finding out things about myself now that I knew. But you know, now that we're on this subject, I probably still look to men for security.
Right.
And I never.
What the conclusion was that I need a man to be secure. And only men like my dad.
Like my dad.
Who's predictable and on time.
Very much
can
so.
make me secure.
Very much.
Fundamentally, I'm insecure. You're insecure. You need that male father figure in your life. Any other conclusions you came to about yourself? Remember, she's only 3 or 4 years old. Not all this intelligence she's got now. She just reached a conclusion. Children are very perceptive. They're good at observing, very bad at reaching right conclusion, which would be understandable, right? So we all have some mistaken conclusions that we have formed when we're in our childhood. We got some right though, but we got a lot that are incorrect. Are you insecure? Are you in danger anywhere? I mean, will you collapse? No, not at all. It was a mistaken conclusion she had about herself, carrying over from her childhood, that may be restricted and restraining her style of movement in life now, depriving herself of all of that stuff laying out there called life. Because down inside she's concluded that, well, unless I got this strong man who I can predict in my life, I can't get out there and get none of that stuff called life. It's a mistaken conclusion that she reached about herself when she's 3 or 4 years old that is restraining her.
You know, and that's a role model. My mother is a female role model.
Oh,
It's
here
the
it
same type
comes.
of woman. I mean,
yes.
she's the
Yeah.
same type of woman.
Yeah.
I mean, her husband is her life and her kids. And she's that for a woman. She's a housewife, and she's happy with that.
Sure.
I think she's happy being there.
Sure. One of the things that happen in our family system, we very often internalize. We internalize the values and beliefs of our parents, obviously. Examine what it is you believe. Examine the core of your value system. Look at its genesis. And very often you find that it simply is a duplicate of that which existed within your family of origin, particularly your mom and your dad. Nothing wrong with that, per se. But you need to examine and edit it because mom and dad were not perfect. None of us are. They got some stuff absolutely wrong that you have internalized, right? And it has become a constellation in you, right? In the form of your own particular attitude.
Well, I was going to say that's true because a lot of people don't understand why is it that these people in the projects don't want to work and they don't want to do that, but they never saw their mother or father work. You know, so when you find these guys say, why should I work? You know, I don't want a job.
Right.
And a lot of people have a hard time understanding that, but when you look at their family system and what they've been used to, they internalize that. They didn't see their mother and father working. He's in and out of jail. She doesn't work.
That's right.
So this is what they've been seeing all their life. So a lot of people, mainstream people who come from working home, they have a problem understanding that.
Of course. They have a problem understanding, they're threatened by it, and so many other things. But the children internalize not just your biology. They're not just a reflection of you biologically. Your children very often become a reflection of you psychologically, emotionally, even to some extent spiritually. You see? So you have to be very, very conscientious about how you parent in return. What conclusion did you come to about life, my dear? about the world?
I'm not sure.
Sometimes you have to feel for it.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I don't know, maybe I look at.
Well, certainly
I
one
look
of them
at
is that life
as a
is great.
partnership.
Life is great when there's somebody in it
Right, I
that
look
you
at
can
life as a
predict.
partnership, I guess.
All right.
And,
I want you to stay in 3 or 4 years old now.
or 3 and 4 years.
Yeah,
Oh.
right. Don't come down.
Conclusions that I don't know if I even tried to get conclusions on it.
Well, did you feel were there ever in your imagination the contemplation of your father not coming home on time after that TV show? Did that ever strike any fear in you? He had been so punctual.
I can't remember him not coming home
You
in
can't
time. There
remember?
could have been,
Yeah.
it could have been,
Yes.
but I don't remember.
That's
that.
all right. This is just a little bit. You might not have came to no conclusion about life in this particular early recollection. There may be another recollection you got where you came to your life conclusion. Each recollection may not have all of the conclusions across the whole spectrum. You see, you may have a recollection where here's where I got my conclusions about others from. Then you got another recollection here, and then it will find where you got your conclusions about life. Usually what I like you to do is to always give about 8 of your early recollections. With 8 of your early recollections, we're going to be able to find each episode where you reach your conclusions with respect to yourself about life, etc., etc. We'll get a pretty good feel. It'll be interesting if you like to do that, you know, put together 8 early recollections and make an appointment, all right?
Okay.
Okay. Now, we're going to take a break shortly, but let me again set it up for when we come back from that break. The thing that I want you to understand from all that has gone on up to this point is very simple. That the way you feel, the emotions you have, the style of life that informs the way you move and interact with others in the world. All of those things are driven by your thoughts. I want you to understand that thought shapes emotion. There is no such thing as an emotion independent of a thought pattern that preceded it. No such thing. You can't even have an emotion unless it is preceded by a thought pattern. And these emotions in turn is what creates the actions at the physical level. So I want you to understand the causal direction of your behavior. It flows from your thoughts to your emotions. That's why we call them emotions, because this is what gives you the energy to move. Okay? And this is the reflection on this level. In mysticism, these levels of consciousness have been referred to as the causal level of consciousness. This is at the astral, the non-physical, the emotional, psychological level. And of course, this is the physical plane. So some of the mystics have talked about these in terms of planes of consciousness, right? And the relationship that the causal plane, causal because this is where all cause emerge from. All cause flow from the level of thought. The astral is where all energy is supplied. And here you get the byproduct of the two, right? Hence, as Shakespeare said, the whole world becomes a stage, right? This is where the drama is carried out. And what I want you to particularly note is that if you have negative thoughts, you will produce a negative emotional state in yourself, and you will develop a negative pattern of behavior with no exception. And this is very interesting, because from this model, we can come to certain very real conclusions. First one is will shock you. We talked already 4 sessions and a half about anger. And now I think I'm able to tell you that the reality, ladies and gentlemen, is that no one can make you angry but yourself. Period. There's no such thing as somebody making you angry. There are okay. Right? Listen to me. It is, what is the definition of anger according to me? It is your perception of an attack on your person. Your perception. What is a perception? A perception is the meaning and the interpretation you place on the event. The event in itself is neutral. The meaning is supplied by you. The interpretation is supplied by you. And if you interpret the event and it's misperceived or it's negative, it triggers negative thinking in your mind. You will create a negative emotional state. All right? If you're thinking about yourself, that inner dialogue is negative. Some event has happened, you had a perception of it, you interpret that event, right? Enter into an inner dialogue about yourself, with yourself, and it's all negative thinking, you will automatically generate a state of depression. Please make a note, all depression is the direct result of negative thinking about yourself. It's all depression. If you think negatively about yourself, you will go into a state of emotional depression, and your behavior will reflect that depressed state. So today, I want you to have this revelation, because you've been walking around thinking that other people are making you angry. And your whole emphasis has been on how to manage other people. That's not what I'm teaching you here. First of all, you can't manage other people. I don't want you to have the wrong understanding of what I mean about managing anger. The only way to manage anger is to manage your own mind, particularly at the level of how you think. And afterwards, and after break, we're going to talk a lot more about this here. Because this is the key. This is the master's key that unlocks the ability to master not only your anger, but your greed, your attachment, your egotism, and all of those other things, lust. It is the way to manage these five perverted states of mind, which constitute the aim and objective of any authentic system of spiritual growth. So I want you to understand this. The relationship is with your thoughts. How you interpret the event as it relates to you. And if you got a negative interpretation on that event, it's going to produce a negative emotional state in you, and you're going to get some negative behavior coming out of you every single time. So let's take a break while you chew on that, and we'll come back and I'll try to defend this position. All right. We'll come back at 2:05. Ready? All right. Part 2 of session. Thank you. All right. Now, right before the break, I was telling you that the realities, particularly as it relates to anger, is that no one has the power to make you angry but yourself. No one has the power to cause you to become depressed but yourself. But for most of us, that's a revelation in as much as it is a shock, because we've been thinking that the problem is the other person. And that if I could just straighten this other person out, I can reduce my level of anguish. Well, the trouble with that is that millions and millions of people for hundreds of thousands of years have been trying that strategy, and it has not worked yet. The reality is that you cannot change anyone at all. Nor is there any need to change anyone. What one has to change is one's perception and the interpretation and the meaning one is giving to that person's behavior, or to an event, or to a set of circumstances, or whatever it is that may be the cause of your particular suffering. This key, as I said before the break, is the master key. It's not just applicable to giving yourself immediate relief from your anger or the agony of your unfulfilled greed or unsatisfied lust and so forth and so on. But for across the whole entire board, if you're going through bankruptcy, knowing this will take away all of the stinging out of that. If you have a debilitating illness, indeed, even if you're about to die and you have this knowledge, you can die like a Mansour. You see, just beautiful. You know, you can die like a Socrates. Give me the points, no problem whatsoever. We are terrified of death because we don't know how to die. We don't know how to take this thing out of it. So the masters have left for us a key that takes even the sting of death away from the whole horror that we associate with dying. So I want to talk about that now. We'll begin to talk about it now, and probably we'll continue in the next session where we leave off today. Again, my ambition today is to lay the foundation, lay the framework so that we can begin to appreciate this. You recall I just illustrated for you the relationship between behavior, your behavior, and other people's behavior. Please make a note of that. Other people's behavior towards you begins at the level of their thinking. All right? At the level of their thinking. So remember we said the second type of anger that we very often have difficulty managing is others' anger at us. And you have to understand that the other person angered you is predicated on that person's perception of something that you've done, the interpretation they've given to it and the meaning, and they are acting out of their own mental space. Therefore, understanding that, you immediately not take it personal. Normally we take it very personal, as if it's a reflection on us. It has nothing to do with it. They can be totally misperceived. Now, since we know that the problem is at the level of thought, we can immediately now move to the level of the mind. We have found our real culprit here. In any area of life where we're having difficulty, the only culprit is the mind. And specifically, your own mind. Your own mind. And so we want to begin to see how this works, okay? Now, you have to understand that we each have developed, as a part of our lifestyle, a whole way of thinking. Your lifestyle is fundamentally your way of thinking, your way of interpreting, your way of adding meaning and value to things, people, events. Formed, as we pointed out already, from the moon. A lot of it based on mistaken conclusion. Now, if you got a lot of mistaken conclusion that is permeating your whole thinking process, then you're going to have real muddled thinking, aren't you? The mystics and the sages, of course, categorizes for us some fundamental categories that our thinking can be assigned to. These are not hard and fixed. Some may overlap, but again, it's just a model that we can follow. The first is called Kutaka. I don't know if the spelling is accurate, but it's phonetically accurate. Kutaka. This is an individual whose style of processing reality through the mind is basically focused on the negative. It is a kind of mind that everything it sees, it will interpret it negatively. In fact, it doesn't even see anything positive. Everything is negative. This kind of mind can only see what is wrong. Its whole focus is on what is wrong. They can pick up what is wrong just like that. They're very good at that. They can walk up into a room and they can tell you in a split second what's wrong with the room. They can tell you what's wrong with the individual. They have trained themselves to be able to perceive wrong, faults.
What you said these 4 categories are?
I haven't named them all yet. This
No,
is
I mean,
the first one.
the title of this.
I'm going to follow the question.
You said you were going to give us 4 what now? What is this? What category is this?
These are the kinds of patterns of thinking. Okay, I'm sorry. I should get a note. Bhagwan, as they are called in the literature, the pattern. Okay? So this Kataka style of thinking is focused on picking up that which is negative. And therefore, it produces almost always a set of negative emotions as a result of that. People who can only see negative, people that are constantly complaining with what is wrong in life, you will notice that that complaining, that constant focusing on what is negative, is accompanied by an emotional state that is reflected of their negative thinking, which is usually in the form of they have very deep depression, they have bad tempers sometimes, right? They are always melancholy. So forth. I mean, you can begin to see a whole list of things. Again, because that is the style of thinking that they developed in those formative years. And they never had a chance to go back and correct it. They're just running off of that same stuff. And normally your style of thinking will stay with you your whole life. Not just one life, many lives. Because when you come into the next incarnation from this present life, what you bring with you are these kinds of impressions. What the mystics have called some skalas. Some skalas. You bring a pattern with you. That's the only thing that goes into the next incarnation. None of the contents of the experiences available. It's the pattern. So it may be a style of thinking that you have been using from the time you've been trapped in your mind. So we have to understand that. So that's one of the first kinds of thinking, negative, focusing on that which is wrong. The second category of thinking, or type of thinking, pattern of thinking, however you wish to phrase this, is what the mystics have called vitaka, which is, again, the opposite. Notice these are extremes. The person that is truly kutaka always see only the negative. It's never a question of them saying this is their permanent frame of perception. So I'm talking about extremes now. The extreme opposite of kutaka is vitaka. They see only that which is positive. extreme. Let me give you an example, because I know in the West we've been thinking, well, Bhagwan, that's what we want to do. We want to do positive thinking. So how can there be anything possibly inadequate about that? I want to point out to you that that is not necessarily what it means to think positively. To focus only on that which is positive is to miss half of life. Because everything in life is not. Life is made up of negative things as well. Okay? The person that is totally orientated into the vitaka pattern of thinking very often are people that you see suffering from some kind of manic illness. If you're familiar with bipolar disorders, the manic depressive individual is an individual that suffers from both one and two, aren't they? Right? When their thinking is all focused in, right, they go into depression. When it gets focused all on the other side, they go into a manic state. The manic state is characterized by a person having exaggerated concepts of themselves. Right? They can leap tall buildings in a single bounce. They get manic. You see? They are thinking too positive in the sense of the word. Okay? They don't see the reality. Remember, thinking positively and being positive, in the true sense of the word, are very different things. But in any case, a person that is vitaka is locked in that. So this is a person that takes everything and they see it positively. They very often become naive. They, for instance, are people that think that they stick their hands in a lion cage, the lion bites his hand off, and you think that's a positive experience. Because he can't make any distinction. You understand? He may be a person that go and steal your car and have absolutely no remorse because they think that's positive. I want you to enjoy the distinction. Because they think it's positive does not make it positive. Right? They interpret everything that way. You have to play with the concept a little bit. It'll come to you. In any case, this kind of exaggerated focusing on everything as being positive and good, and then as a result of that, they create for themselves the kind of emotional state that is characterized by mania. Some people would think, I'm Jesus Christ, right? And they act out of that, right? Well, you can say on one hand it's good they think they're Jesus Christ, but you have to realize you're not Jesus Christ. You're not a Buddha, right? So I want you to understand that, and that leads to that kind of exaggerated behavior. What we classically will find in a lot of people's ego mythology. If you look closely at a person's ego mythology, you'll find a lot of that stuff. You know, I think I'm this, I think I'm that, I'm great. You know, they have even these thoughts about themselves as well. All right, we'll be coming back to these as we go through the balance of the workshop, so don't worry about fully mastering these concepts now. They're a little subtle and foreign to most of us. The third is just taka. Taka. You would think it's in the middle, right? You would think that he is kutaka up here and vitaka down there, and this is the middle ground. In some sense, you're right, but only in the sense that it's in the middle. What it really illustrates is a kind of mind that has no direction at all. It has no pattern. It is an unpatterned state of mental perception. Scatterbrained. They can't think at all. They find it very difficult to think. They can't think. They're usually in a state of total confusion. Just blown along as circumstances and events passes through their lives. No capacity to think. Non-thinkers. They don't think at all. They act without thinking because they can't think. They can't evaluate. They're disconnected from any kind of discriminative process at all. And the state that the mystics have suggested that we develop within ourselves what they call vadi. Vavika. Fourth state. That is called clear thinking. But you got to think. The mind is a tool, good tool, the best. You couldn't get a better tool than your mind if it can think clearly. If you cannot think clearly, the mind is the worst enemy you will ever encounter in this lifetime and any other lifetime. It is a good servant, a very bad master. And we have to develop the capacity to think clearly. In fact, Maharaji used to always say that thinking clearly, that ability alone constitutes 95% of enlightenment. 95% of the phenomena that we call enlightenment consists merely of the ability to think clearly. So it's very important. With that in mind now, let us begin to look a little closer at why I have made these statements about the fact that no one can make you angry but yourself, and that is basically because of a particular pattern of thinking that you have become conditioned. And therefore it follows then that the way to correct a lot of the negative emotional states you are in is to change your thinking. But I want you to be as convinced as I am. Now, did somebody do some homework in here by last week? Before I go too far, is anybody do? Because if you're not doing homework, I have to repeat this every session. If you're not doing homework, you're not getting nothing. It's just going to stay with you at the level of information. It's not going to change you. It's not going to give you any solace. You see, it's like putting play money in the bank. You can't spend it. You can't do nothing with this at the level of just information. You got to do some homework. You got to do this work that I'm assigning to you here, this housework. You have to do that. That's where the real benefits lie. But let's take a typical example. Now that nobody did any homework, let's do some homework now. All right? You did some homework. All right. Let's take our homework, and I want to put it in a different format. All right, sister.
I wasn't that successful.
That's okay. It's homework. All homework is successful.
Okay. Twice a week I teach a non-reading adult, and she and I've been her tutor for probably 2.5 months, and she was sort of a special case, and that's why they assigned her to me. She suffers from very low self-esteem, and she's in her 30s. She's only reading at a first grade level, and so many years she's had to hide this. So now I'm able to open her up on a few things. So she was making great progress in her vocabulary. I thought we were expanding her vocabulary anywhere between 10 and 15 words a week. And what I would ask her to do for homework, she would write the words, and I would ask her to say the words. So because I'm trying to keep her in line of phonetics and stuff. And she seemed to be doing quite well. Each week I would quiz her on 15 to 20 words. She would only miss about 3. She would be so proud of herself. I would be proud of her, and I would constantly commend her, and you're doing a wonderful job for what you're doing, and she would be happy. Well, on one of our sessions, I was flipping through some old notes, and I saw a quiz that she had taken probably the first or second week of our meeting, and the words looked so small compared to the words she was now working. And I said to her, name is Sheila, I said, Sheila, look, remember these words? And she looked at her, and she said, no. I said, you don't remember these words? And she said, no. And my heart sank, and I'm thinking, these were words we had gone over 2 weeks ago. But I didn't want to show her any disappointment because, I'm dealing with a fragile person. So I said, well, what do you mean you don't remember? She said, I don't remember ever having those words. I said, well, let's do a slight quiz. They'll come to you. And I gave her a quiz on the first 2 words that she could not get. And they were only like 4-letter type words. I had her working like in 6-letter type words. And the word she couldn't get was stab, S-T-A-B. So I said, Sheila, you know what the S sound makes? And I went through the whole thing like we usually go through. And she was saying it under her breath, but she wouldn't say the word out loud. And finally she said a word, but it wasn't the word. She was saying stab under her breath, but then she said scratch. Out of the blue, she took this word scratch. And I thought, where did she get, I said, is there a C there? And I'm going through this whole routine, and no, and it's like, I can't believe we're back to square one. And my heart, it just really threw me for a loop. I didn't know where to go. I had some new words set up for her to learn from that session. I decided I couldn't go any further with that. I said, well, we're going to concentrate, but we're going to go back, and we're going to go over some of these words. So we started from the beginning, and I could see that she was disappointed because she knew if we were starting from the very beginning that she was not grasping things. So it was like 2 months that she probably felt was out of the window, but I kept encouraging her. I said, well, this happens, and maybe it's my fault. Maybe we should have been, repeating these words more often. Maybe I should have, because I was only taking words, maybe from the last session, maybe taking 4 or 5 and bringing her to the next. I wasn't going all the way back to the first week. So for the rest of the session, I was thinking, what was it I did that caused this? I really couldn't even concentrate on sitting with her because I was busy wondering what was it in my style of teaching that caused her to behave this way. So when our session was over, my literacy agency is in a building downtown that has a doorman. He's used to seeing us leave the building like at 7 o'clock in the evening, and they're usually quite pleasant. They say goodnight, and they usually have a sign out. Well, this particular evening, now I'm already kind of angry with myself, not her, but I'm wondering, what did I do? And I'm still thinking about this, but she's making small talk, so I'm pretending to listen to her. Really, I'm not. She's small talking about the evening, and well, I'm going to do this when I get home. I'm like, oh, you're right. So it's time to sign out, and I'm about to sign out, and the doorman says, excuse me, and I look up, and he says, will you look at what you're signing? Very rude, and I look, and that's why I'm signing out like I normally do. See, I needed somebody to pull off on because I didn't manage her.
You had to find something.
Yeah, I had to find someone, and so then he says, well, if you look at that, that's not the regular sign out sheet. I said, well, what is it doing here then? Because it was in a place that I normally sign. He said, you don't have to sign out tonight. So I said, well, thank you very much, and I was very curt with him. And I was angry, and then Sheila got angry because she felt the same way. That why is this guy, why did he have a sign-out sheet here? So she thought, oh, her anger is focused at him. I want her to think that anyway. So when we said goodnight to each other, and I walked away, I thought to myself, I just really let it go on him because I was angry at myself. And I didn't want Sheila to think that I was angry at her. So I left feeling disappointed about the whole evening. I said, oh gosh, Bhagwan, we're supposed to be trying to manage our anger. I did a poor job in managing my anger, and I also did a poor job in tutoring my students. So I really felt bad that particular evening. And I thought, well, only thing I can do is try to correct what I made wrong. So the next session was 2 nights later, and I saw that doorman, and he was especially nice to me.
Naturally,
because
man,
he
scared of you.
Yeah, he was especially nice, but you know what? And this was going in for my tutoring session. I was embarrassed. I'm embarrassed to say, but I was still kind of curt with him because it kind of caught me off guard. I didn't expect that particular doorman to be on the door coming in. He's usually there when I'm coming out. So I was like, hi, When I got upstairs, this is the hour, you're supposed to be working on this. You have to forgive him. You have to get on with this. And, it was not his fault. You shouldn't be directing it at him. And then when the evening session ended, he was there on the door, and I said, good night, and we made some small talk the way we used to make small talk before that little blow-up incident. So I left feeling better. I felt like, well, okay, you put that behind you. It wasn't his fault. It was misdirected, and he was glad to see that I was nice to him like I had been in the past.
Well, thank
So
God. Well, that was a good homework, first of all. That was an excellent homework because it contains element of everything that we've been talking about. And so let's tear that apart, right?
Okay.
And on the first level, we begin to see a lot of things, right? You located the object of your anger correctly. It was at yourself, right? It wasn't so much at her. It might have been a little bit, but most at yourself, right? You were disappointed with her, right? A little angry at her for being dumb, not catching it, wasting your time, no good. But just a little anger, mostly at yourself, feelings of incompetence. Now let's look at this here, all right? Now I want you to learn how to do this here because you're going to need to do this. It's very hard to do homework in your head. Please make a note of it. It's very hard to do homework in your head. You're going to need to get some paper and a pen and journalize. It's like doing calculus in your head. If you can't do arithmetic, you don't have a shot doing calculus in your head. I can give you a simple columns of numbers, 10 or 15 numbers, and tell you to add them up. You'll probably sit there the rest of the evening and not come to a right summation. But you write those same numbers down and you got it in 2 or 3 seconds. It's more like that. You have to build yourself up to this point where you can do homework in your head. Don't do homework in your head. Put it down on paper because it helps you to structure the homework, okay? And this is a good format to use in translating the homework down so that you really get it. First thing we want to locate is the event, right? The episode. And with her, how do you want to phrase that? I'll let you phrase it. You get some practice. How should we refer to the event? Well, what was the event? First of all. Tutoring session. All right, that's good. The tutoring session. The tutoring session from hell. All right. All right. So we got the event that triggered the episode, right? Okay. Now what we want to see is what feelings did that event trigger. Okay, we want to now identify the feelings. What were you feeling?
Disappointment.
Disappointment. All right. What else was she feeling, folks? If y'all remember, as she was going through her,
She was feeling angry.
she was angry. And did she locate an object of the anger?
Yeah.
She was feeling self-anger. So we can suspect that that's going to discourage her and depress her a little bit if she mismanages it, right? Every time. What were some of the other feelings you were having?
I think she was feeling guilty.
Guilty, a little guilt there, a little guilt. Because you had failed to live up to your own standard of professionalism, right? You felt guilty about it, right? Okay. Anything else? You know if she mismanaged her anger a little bit, she was a little depressed, right? So she had some depression.
She felt confused.
Yeah, thank you, that's right. She was confused because she didn't know what she did, right? Wrong. She didn't know. She didn't have a clue. Right? So she was confused. And you probably can make that list very exhaustive. The ideal is to make it as exhaustive as you can because you want to get in touch with the stuff, right? Now, the next thing, you want to see what was the inner dialogue. What she's thinking to herself. What was the thing going through your mind?
Where did I
The
go
self-talk
wrong?
that you're giving
Yeah.
yourself now. I want you to,
Where did I go wrong?
all right, where did I go wrong? What else? What were some of the other thoughts going through your mind?
Why, I was probably wondering why she didn't take the initiative to refresh her own memory on some past words.
Why didn't she be more responsible?
Responsible,
All right.
yes.
Why, Sheila?
Sheila, yes.
Or it was like, actually it was framed probably this way.
Oh shit, that's stupid.
Sheila should study more, right? Be more responsible. Sheila should study more, be more responsible, that kind of thing. You should it on her a little bit. What other thoughts running through?
I know she ain't that stupid.
No, she's nice, that Rob. That's stupid for a nigga.
No, I did say.
But this
I
is your
started-
inner dialogue. What the
You know,
thoughts
I-
running through your mind?
I was wondering if I had a more than just a non-reading problem. I was wondering if I was dealing with a learning disability.
Yeah. Well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you have thoughts that Sheila.
Might have a learning
Sheila.
disability.
Yeah. Sheila had. Mike.
Yeah, because she wasn't retaining, so I thought, well, maybe I'm dealing more with the person who just can't read. Maybe she can.
A deeper problem.
Right, it could be a deeper problem.
Okay. What other thoughts running through your mind?
this is gonna be a long
Yeah,
journey.
well, we won't do
That's
them
what I
all,
was
but
thinking.
this is what I want you to do, though.
No, but I mean, that's what I was thinking when I was sitting there, is that if I had to start all the way from 2 months ago, we are definitely not gonna be targeting, I mean, she thinks she's gonna be able to read from a first grade level to like a fifth grade level in probably a few months. She's got this, because she doesn't know,
Expectation,
right?
yeah.
She's got this high expectation, so I'm thinking in 2 months, we're already having to go back. So we're not gonna be nowhere near finishing around the time that she thinks, and I'm wondering if I'm gonna be able to hold her interest.
Okay.
Because
So,
you have to kind of make it entertaining, you know, kind of.
so the thought was kind of like, man, this may be a failed attempt.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
The thoughts were simple.
That was starting.
I'm going to fail. I'm going to fail to be able to help this person. You start seeing failure come from, right? Give me one more. Because you have a long list, but it's important that you get them all, okay? Give me one more. The thinking that was running through your mind, what kind of conclusions were you coming to about yourself from that event? Like any episode, not just from your childhood, any event, you're always going to interpret in terms of reaching conclusions about yourself. You can see the conclusions reached about, Sheila. We can find some conclusions we're going to reach about life. We can find all that stuff. The time will permit. Those will be the things you're looking for. But what kind of conclusion did you come to about yourself as a result of this event? Thinking. What were you thinking? Give me the stuff that you were actually thinking. And once you accept this kind of housework, you will bring enough awareness to these events to know them. But just looking in retrospect now, what was some of the other thinking that was going on? You might have to go on into it. It does require a little comment down. Can you give us one more?
Well, I knew I was going to have to find a solution to this problem, and I started thinking about people that I can talk to that work within the agency that I might be able to have to, make an appointment to sit with them. Can you help me? I'm at a.
All right. So you were thinking that you didn't have the competence, right?
Well, I knew I needed a solution to the problem.
Okay, you needed some help.
I need some help.
All right. That you might not, and again, I'm just trying to capture the flavor of the thing. You might not be competent enough and need some help from others to work with you. And again, you have to sit down and you have to capture your own words. So this is, it's another one, Kay?
Well, I was thinking the agency, I felt that I might have let the agency down because they must have had thought that I would be able to handle her because she was special in their eyes. Because not only could she not read, she had low self-esteem. There's quite a few things she still has a need to discuss with me because I try not to get personal. I just want to be there if she needs to talk. And she's finally starting to open up. She's raising some kids that belong to a cousin that was killed, and she's having problems with one of the teenagers. This kind of comes out. So I'm thinking, well, the agency gave me her as my responsibility. She's someone that they really would like to see turn around or whatever, and they've given me this responsibility.
Yes. So you're thinking, I'm letting this agency down.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of thinking.
I'm letting this agency down. People that depend on me, I'm letting them down. I'm feeling Sheila, I'm feeling the agency, I'm feeling myself. All these kind of thoughts that's running through your mind. This is the dialogue you're having with yourself, right? Now, let's begin to look at this here. Well, first of all, we can see how all of these thoughts necessarily are being reflected in the categories of feelings, right? And what you want to see is what kind of distorted thinking you're doing. What is the distorted thinking that you're doing? First of all, let's look, for instance, here. You said, where did I go wrong, right? The assumption is that you're wrong, right?
Yeah,
okay.
The outcome was
right? But you might not be wrong. You might be right. It may not be nothing to do with you. The does not follow that you were lying, right? But you made that assumption, right? So what you did, you personalized the event. You took it as a reflection on you. Is that right?
I do.
Okay. Sheila should study more, and Sheila should be more responsible herself. She has some of this responsibility in this here. You see? I'm looking bad because she has not done. You are shooting on her, right? She's not playing by the rules according to you, right? So you should it on her. Okay? You should it on her. What do I mean by shooting on a person? It means that what you've done to a person is you had a good intention for her. That is backfired big time, right? Okay? You had a good intention for her that you disguised in words in the form of your should. Is that right? And it didn't work. It's, good intentions never work. That's what we've been saying from the beginning here. So you should it on her. Sheila might have a learning disability, right? Now you trying to read her mind, right? You started some mind reading, right? She might have a learning disability. Actually, what you do, you labeled her. Then you labeled her. Right? You labeled her. To distance yourself. Right?
Well, I didn't feel
You know what?
I was just trying
She's
to.
just trying to find a solution.
Yeah, I was trying to
Just
find a solution. I didn't feel any distance.
The point is that what all you have to do is you have to become aware of the distorted thinking that you're doing and how it relates to what you're feeling.
You don't think that was appropriate? She's trying to figure
I
out
don't know,
the
she's the
problem.
only one.
Because, yeah,
You know, if you have behaved appropriately, you wouldn't have these feelings. That's the first thing to understand. Appropriate thinking will never lead to these feelings, ever.
But she was just like brainstorming.
Well, it's all right,
Yeah.
you know, and it's not saying that she would, her effort to try to figure out how to solve a problem, I'm not saying that that's wrong. I'm saying that the thinking that you use to try to solve the problem is what's important. See the distinction? The goal is to solve the problem, right? But if your thinking is inappropriate, are you going to solve the problem? No. Not only are you not going to solve the problem, you're going to wind up doing this kind of stuff to yourself. So you're right. Her goal to try to solve that problem is we're not passing any judgment on that. I'm simply focusing in on the process. You know, the process itself. I'm going to fail to be able to help Chidi. What is she doing?
Good intention.
Of course, it's a good intention, and she's also a fortune teller now, right? She's a fortune teller. She's already out in the future, right? This is a distorted form of thinking. You telling the future. How you know you're gonna fail? It's not over with yet, right? But she's already came to that conclusion, right? I'm sure that contributed a lot to the feeling of discouragement, right? I'm gonna fail. You might not be competent yourself enough to help this Sheila, and will therefore have to seek help from others, right? But you might be competent enough to help her, right? You may not, or you may have to seek help. And in any case, so what, right? That does not mean that you're letting down the agency, right? And so, again, and we'll go over this again and again because it takes a little while to get used to this here. But this is like an x-ray of what was going on in your head, right? And you can begin to see that you're making a lot of things. What could you think otherwise in this whole situation? Let's see what the Bhagwan would be. It's the same situation now, right? Same event. Sheila is not picking up on the word, right? You're thinking somewhere I went wrong. But you could replace that kind of thinking with.
Well, this is why we need help, guys.
Well, all right, guys, help her out. What could she say to herself? How could she interpret that event otherwise?
We're gonna have to work harder.
Right. You say, well, yeah. We got to work a little harder.
Well, I would think she would consider changing her approach, you know.
Or maybe change my style. I need to change. Sheila's not learning this here. I don't have to come to the automatic conclusions that I went wrong. How do you come to that automatic conclusion? I'm wrong. You know, change my approach. Maybe I have to work harder. Maybe my approach just needs more. I need to do my approach more. We don't know. But certainly there was no justification to jump to the conclusion. If you look at it, that's another part of the distorted thinking. She jumped to a lot of conclusions all the way down. You see her jumping to conclusions?
You know, I work with adults too, and in a way that is jumping to conclusions. You know what? Sometimes adults come to sessions and their minds are somewhere else. It could not have been anything wrong with her. Maybe she knows it. Maybe she was taxed by something. It could have been any number of things. So it didn't have to be you. Didn't necessarily have to be her. Just could have been circumstances that she was having a bad day. You know, we all
well, here we can clearly see she jumped to the conclusion that I'm doing something wrong. She leaked. I mean, a big
because I felt responsible for her.
Right.
Yeah.
You had that good intention. It's okay. You know, what is a kind of clear thought thinking we're talking about? What kind of clear thinking she could have replaced with the thinking that I'm letting the agency down? What kind of clear thinking could she have done and avoid feeling disappointed in herself?
The next session will be better.
Maybe the next session will be better. You see? Just because this one session and this one word staff does not mean I've let the agency down. There's been many clients that have come in here that I've helped. You see? This don't mean because I got one client could not remember one word that I have let this agency down. How in the world did you get that conclusion from that one incident? You see? So you begin to get a feel for this kind of thing. Okay. Did anybody else do a homework? We're not going to exhaust all of these here. We'll play with this from time to time, but I want you to start getting the feeling of how you can, at the end of a day, if there's something that is upsetting you, right, you can actually set it down on paper and go through it. Yes?
So you say she said, like in her case, in most cases, you should sit down and see what your worth is. Like she could say, look, I've tutored 20 people and I've succeeded. And this one is just a little bit more challenging. Instead of just putting yourself down and feel like you're worthless or useless.
Right. And that's what she did. And how did she do it? By the way she was thinking of herself.
Well, she was my first student, and I think that's why I was disappointed.
It might have been the emotional thing.
Because had I had the experience of, prior teaching, I would have expected some of this.
Could be.
See, we were both new.
But you could have thought clearly then, well, this is my first student. I can't expect her to be perfect and get everything right, and maybe, you see.
Yeah.
I mean, there was other ways you could have went with the thinking, other than jumping to the conclusion that I don't know what I'm doing, or she's, have learned. I mean, these were not necessarily rational conclusions that we came to. They weren't clear. Yes.
I finally had success with one.
All right. All right. I was hoping for some weren't successful, but no, I like the successful one too. Yes.
I work temporary, so I work at this crazy place.
we see where this is going.
So yesterday, maybe 2 o'clock, he tells me he doesn't need me this week. So it's too late for me to call somebody else to get work.
Yes.
Even though that morning I had been crying in my daughter's ear about how much I need a vacation, and I was all depressed because I haven't had time off in over a year. But I want to decide when to take time off, not for this man to just do this whenever he feels like it. That's about the 3rd or 4th time he's done it.
Okay.
I had already made up my mind last time. That's it. If he does it again, I'm going to tell him off. And I'm telling him, when he did this on the phone, I got so calm. I'm like, okay, I've been through this 3 times before.
Mm-hmm.
It's my fault that I'm here in this situation. I shouldn't even be at this place. So I'm thinking all these things while we're on the phone. So then I got off the phone, I called the agency out and told them, what he said, and that this is the 4th time he's done this. And she said, I'm sorry, blah, blah, blah. So, okay, fine. So then I called my girlfriend who was just talking about going up his house that morning.
All right.
I had to, I just had to talk to somebody.
Yes.
And then after I called her, I said, oh, I just hate him.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought about what I said, and I said, why am I talking to this woman about this? So I had to hang up, but I mean, most of the time I just would went off and just went around the office and did what Emma does and go just tell everybody.
It's out of right.
Yeah, I do that, and
Yes.
I didn't do it this time.
Well, isn't that good?
For the first time.
For the first time, you
For the
caught
first time, I caught
yourself.
myself.
Give her applause. Okay, now let's process that. We want to process that. Now, did you have a sense of relief after you've done that? After you decided, I'm not going to start no racket, I'm going to let this thing alone, right? Did you have a deep
Yes,
sense
I
of
did.
relief from pressure?
Right.
And pressure was off you. That pressure was on you, right?
Oh,
You call
yes,
your
I
girlfriend
didn't
trying to
really
get
get
up. You getting ready to get going. But when you manage that anger, right? Let it go. That all that pressure came off you. You didn't feel no need to call her. You didn't
No,
feel no
I
need
told
to
her,
do.
you know, I didn't even talk to her
You
because
didn't need to talk.
not to
You didn't
her.
have to vent.
Mm-mm.
Very good. Was it successful?
Pretty much, yeah. I
Okay.
think so.
So you gave yourself a feeling of being successful. I mean, you handled that. You took care of it. You were proud of yourself. Positive pride. All right? Give yourself some pride, some self-respect. Right? Did you use good judgment in the matter?
Oh, yes.
Huh?
Yeah. Because
Right.
2 weeks before I didn't, I went off and went on a rampage because of the same person.
All right?
Yeah.
Use good judgment this time because you found out from the previous episode that getting angry at people don't solve anything.
No.
It never does. It's not the function. Anger is destructive, not constructive. So if you try to build a relationship, anger is the worst thing you can do. It has no value in that context at all. And so you use some good judgment, right? Did you feel that you can do it again if the occasion arises? Could you handle that situation again like that?
Probably.
Probably. What do you call it when you have the feeling that I can do this again?
Confidence.
You have some confidence. Real confidence, not ego,
Oh, no.
mythological confidence. That was a felt experience,
Oh, yeah.
right? And if the occasion arises again, are you going to be scared?
Oh, no.
What do you call it when you're not scared? What do you got?
Courage.
You got some courage now. You use that episode to give yourself some courage to deal with this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You got that. You're not afraid. And let me ask you, did you get some peace of mind after you did all of that?
Yes, because it forced me to go get the paper and make a copy of the warrant ads.
So you got some peace of mind. You gave yourself some peace of mind.
Mhm.
You got your mind out of that do-loop, didn't you?
Right.
You got your mind out of that obsession, right? And
Right.
you did that which reality dictated. You could get back to the reality.
Right, of trying to find a job.
Trying to find a job. That's what the
Which I
reality
should've
was,
been done
right?
in the first place.
Okay, so you got focused again. Got back your peace of mind, okay? Was the way you handled him adult? Was it mature?
Yes, because I mean I didn't see anything. And it was hard. It's hard for me anyway.
So you were very mature about it. You didn't call him no SOBs and all that other stuff? Huh?
No, I wouldn't have done that to him, but I would, by my tone of voice, he would have known.
You wouldn't have had no
He
music?
would've known.
Your music was right?
Yes.
You had good music, didn't you?
Yes.
Very mature. The music was good. The music was good. And so forth and so on. Do you have did it give you a sense of freedom now? Did you feel more free?
Yeah, I feel freer, but I'm still angry at myself for letting myself be in that situation.
That's okay. That's
I
another
shouldn't be
homework.
there.
That's another homework. You see? That's another homework for you to do. Is to give yourself some relief from the anger that you're still carrying for allowing yourself to be in that situation in the first place. You see? That's a very good homework for you to do. And we can look at that just a little bit and sort of do it together here. What makes you the most angry about being in that situation? Where you
The loss of control, and I don't like other people to control my destiny, or what I eat, or pay rent, or whatever.
Right.
That is a bad feeling.
You feel powerless and out of control, right? You can't
Yes.
control it. We would list that under her category of feelings. We know the event is the what we want to call your event. The job.
Yes,
The
that's a
job.
good one, the job, capital T.
The job, right?
Mhm.
And those situations, because that's a circumstance, right? It's a circumstance. And that circumstance that she is giving her a lot of suffering, isn't it? Right? And so she's having feelings of being powerless and out of control. What other feelings are being produced in you? That may be the only one. I mean, it's up to you to tell us. She's feeling powerless and out of control, right? Are you feeling disappointed?
In myself yet?
Yeah. Disappointed? What else? Is it related? Because we got her object of anger. She already given us that, right? We know what that is, right? That's herself. She's angry at herself, right? So she's feeling disappointed in herself. Are you feeling a little discouraged about it? Being in that situation, is it discouraging? I mean, the key is to find words for this, to put a word on it.
Maybe a little. Maybe I don't think I'm a lot discouraged,
Right,
because I haven't been trying. So
okay.
how would I be discouraged?
All right. Well, what other feelings are you having?
I don't know, maybe a little inadequate or a little unsure, whether I can make a go of doing what I want to do, which is to work for myself.
Insecure. Y'all got them now. You got her. Y'all got them now. They got you now. She's feeling insecure. She's feeling her worthless in some senses. So you can see that these are feelings of self-contempt. When you feel that you are powerless and can't control something as vital as how you eat, money, and all these other things, when you're disappointed and you're angry at yourself, you're inadequate for this, or that, it is a state of self-contempt. Right? Doesn't feel good. Right? No, doesn't feel good. Right? And so your task is to do some homework to give yourself some relationship relief from that. But let's look and see how your way of thinking, how your way of interpreting this event. Because some people will be very happy to be in that situation. We know that. So we know that the interpretation that you've given it is your interpretation. But there's plenty of people there who delight it. So what is going on in your thinking process? What goes on in your inner dialogue? What's going on in your head? Because again, we know that the way you are thinking about this event is what is causing the way you feel. Takes a little practice at this here. It's not as easy as it all sounds, but we don't have to get it perfect, a little at a time. What kind of thinking would you all suspect is going on in her mind when she's at that, in that situation?
Do I have enough income to open today, tomorrow?
She could say that I'm not even making enough money here to even take care of my day-to-day needs, let alone what those needs may be in the future. What if something happened and all these other things? How do you characterize the kind of thinking that goes on in your mind? Usually you see the problem is that we're not so aware of what we're even thinking. It's just happening so much, and all we are experiencing is the effect of our thinking. We very seldom are monitoring our own thinking process, and that's one of the things we have to practice, right, is to increase our awareness of that. Well, I'm going to let you off the hook, but next week I expect you to have all answers to these questions. Now, as we're coming down to wire now, I want to leave you with some housework. I hope you do this here, because if you do, as we move further and further in these sessions, you won't have so many blank stares in your eyes, okay? And the practice is designed to increase your awareness, because without an increase of awareness, you really can't see a lot of the things you need to see to effectively manage your own thinking process. The technique is ancient. I mean, so it's not something that I've created per se, although those of us who are in the field of psychology has recognized a resurgence and emphasis on the technology under the name of cognitive therapy. But I wanted to tell you before cognitive therapy was even a word, the actual essence of what cognitive therapy achieved was taught centuries ago. In fact, in ancient Africa, one of the practices that were prescribed in the developmental stages in this process of increasing one awareness was called I think the Minim Ankh M technique. And all that really means is that it's the rise above the emotions. You know, to be able to feel above the level of your emotions, to literally liberate yourself from the confines and restraints of your emotional level. It was to rise up. And it's a form of practice. Buddha called it Vipassana. Vipassana. What this really means is this. It's very simple. It means to watch. If any of you are familiar with the literature from some of the things that was written in the house, in one of the pamphlets on the path of my heart, in there I talk about the 5 practices. And one of those practices is self-observation. If you don't observe yourself, you'll never know anything about yourself. So you have to observe yourself. But it's very hard to do so. What I suggest is that you start where you are at, and then work yourself up. And earlier today I showed you this stopwatch. Please get yourself a counter. I don't know where you can buy one, but get one, okay? And what I want you to do is this Vipassana practice using your counter. And I want you to pick out something that you want to monitor. If you want to monitor your anger, great. If you want to monitor your lust, great. If you want to monitor your greed, fine. It doesn't matter. But just pick one of the areas that you want to work on yourself in. If it's depression, you want to monitor your depression, for instance, right? Then you want to measure, you want to count every point in the day when you start having the feelings that are associated with depression. When you're having feelings of depression, you feel defeated, you see. It's a feeling that is associated with depression. When you feel that you're being deprived, that's a feeling that goes with depression. When you feel that you've been deserted, that's a feeling that goes with depression. Naturally, your feelings of discouragement, you feel discouraged, that goes with depression, so forth and so on. But you know enough about these things now where you can begin to pretty much know yourself, what feelings you're looking for, depending on which category you're going to work on yourself in. If you're going to work on your anger, you know that what triggers your anger. I asked you to do that homework a long time ago. And if you found that the thing that triggers your anger is whenever you have the feeling that you're being treated unfair, then I want you to count the number of times in the day that you're having the feeling that you are being treated unfair. That's all I want you to do. That's all you have to do. Remember, I said on many occasions that this technology that I'm suggesting to you is its efficacy is rooted in one thing and one thing only: awareness. Oh, the more awareness you get, the more we'll heal. And what you will find from this counting process is something very interesting. The first few days, what you're going to notice is that your count is going to go up. Because each day you will get a little better in monitoring yourself, because you never monitored yourself. You never had enough presence of mind to watch yourself. So the first day you're walking around with this big old counter in your pocket somewhere. I think there are wrist counters available that you can just strap to your wrist, or you may want to hang it around. But it should be in some place that you can get your hands on it. And the first day you go around, and you may only catch yourself, you only become aware of it. And at night when you go to retire for the day, in your journal, you mark down the amount of times. So the first day, you may only notice 15 episodes of you feeling that you are unfair. But the next day you practice it, you're getting better at it, right? And so the next day you find, my God, it's 25 times a day. Well, I'm having a bad day. No, it was 25 yesterday. You just didn't have enough awareness to catch it. You see, right? And then on the third day out, you may find, wow, I'm up to 50, right? But your awareness increases. And then what'll happen is that you'll find it'll peak. It may peak at 75, right? You hit a plateau, right? And then the healing takes place. It may stay 75 2 days in a row, or 3 days. Depends on how long. The practice is designed to go for 10 days, but we don't have 10 days. We got 7. After a plateau, you start seeing it's dropping. Because your awareness becomes so present that it can't rise. Remember I told you about the elephant and catching the tail? Your awareness is risen so much now, right? You're watching yourself so much. You never step into those, you never even allow the thing to come up. Your awareness is there. Your light come up. And you start seeing this drop. Now, the cognitive therapists don't even understand how this works. They really don't. They have no idea because they never meditated. They don't understand awareness and its function in the whole process. They do understand enough, though, that if we just count, just watch, it's possible. Buddha said, don't even try to wrestle with the thoughts. Why are you wrestling with it? Just watch. Become a witness. Witness. Just watch. But watch your mind. Watch your thoughts. And in that watching, it becomes so clear. The belief becomes so clear that this stuff stops happening. Because the ideal is that you don't want to be managing your anger every 12 seconds. That's not what we're here for, okay? I'm not satisfied in just showing you a way to manage your anger. If you keep having increasing experiences of it, then what is the point? You're just walking around managing it every 12 seconds. No. You practice this vipassana. You do this kind of housework, and what you will begin to see is a drop. Okay? But if you do the work, you need to be sincere about it. Okay? That's the only criteria. You know that. Be sincere and be consistent. You know, don't start one day and stop the next day. And for God's sake, don't try to do this in your head. You're going to just fall into the trap of your own ego mythology, and you're not going to get no benefits out of it whatsoever. You see, you just count. Count. Yes.
I had an experience that I think the workshop has helped me with a whole lot. And it was at work again, because work has been my biggest problem for quite some time now.
When that same guy again, was it, huh?
No.
All right.
No, it was more major than that.
All right, good.
Well, from last year, I had got a demotion, and I also lost several $1,000 in income. And then I blamed it all on this woman who did it, you know, because I thought she was grossly unfair and had even lied in order to take money from me as title. So I went through a range of emotions with this woman. When this event first went down, I was so mad at her I couldn't look at her. And every time I get around her, I would probably practice some manic behavior, because sometimes I'll get so mad just looking at her, I would get in the face. So I knew this year that I would have to face her again, you know, for my annual review. And I wasn't really looking forward to it because I didn't know how I was going to respond, because I had carried this anger for a long time, and I was trying to look at it and trying to dissect it and stuff like that. And I couldn't figure it out. I really couldn't figure out what was wrong, because I felt something was wrong for this to happen, and I didn't know what it was, and I didn't know what to do. But I think over a period of time, just watching me dissect anger here in the workshop, that identified a lot of feelings that I had. It put a name on it, and it also broke it down as well. And it did me a lot of good. I knew this meeting was coming up, and I still wasn't sure what I was going to say. I still had a lot of fear. And I started practicing what was coming out of the class in a a range of emotions because that's how it came to me. I
Mhm.
couldn't break it down as I felt like this and I felt like that.
Mhm.
It was a combination
Yes.
going on, and
Yes.
that's how I had to deal with it. And I said, you know, for me to get so mad just to see this woman, you know, then anger is fear, you know.
Yes.
And it was hard for me to accept anger as fear because I don't want to feel like I'm scared of nobody.
Absolutely. Ego mythology don't like that.
No, it didn't like
That's right.
that at
That
all.
goes against the ego
It-
mythology.
I fought everything. I
That's
fought
right.
it. I fought everything. I fought that anger because anger means fear. And it's like, you know, I'm not scared of nobody. Okay? And I fought the feelings of, you know, she's grossly unfair to me. You know, she had no business doing that, taking money from me. It wasn't right.
Mhm.
And she had damaged my reputation. All this was projected to one person.
Yes, yes.
And so I had to see this woman, and I had got to the point where it didn't upset me to see her. I could even speak to her if I wanted to. And I could conduct business with her. And also, I was able to not let her manipulate me the way she the way she had done before, because
Mhm.
that one experience had taught me so much
Mhm.
about her and what to alert myself to. But the real issue was, how did I feel about myself
Yes.
and where was I really coming from?
Yes.
And so the meeting I had with her, it came out of my own experience about myself.
Mhm.
I kind of had to reclaim myself just to deal with her, because I said for me to be this upset about one person, then I'm giving her power over me.
Yes.
And I didn't want her to have power over me. I wanted to reclaim my own self.
Yes.
And so when I sat with her, I think that I handled the situation very well, and that I did not give anything of myself. I didn't have to prostitute myself or
Mhm.
nothing like that,
Mhm.
just to keep a job or to keep my self-respect, you know, which is to me what people
Mhm.
try to do. They try to take away any
Yes.
good feeling you have about yourself to pump them up.
Right.
But I think that I maintained my own. I was also worried about my attitude, because for me to hate her that much, you know, I had a lot of attitude. And I had them
This
coming
is
in
gonna be
on all
quite
my
this is gonna be quite a feat. Getting
I
get your
mean-
music right. That must have been hard.
All of that was hard. It was hard. But I had to do that for me. I had to like reclaim myself.
Yes.
And on a lot of levels.
Yes.
A lot of levels, because life is not real simple. One event can be broke down so much, just the events that people share here in the room.
Yeah.
When you break it down, you've got about 20 things
You got
that
a lot
you've
going on.
named in different categories.
Yes.
So it's not simple, but you must get all those things working together inside of you, I would say. And that's one reason why I like the workshop. It's putting names on things for me. It's breaking it down for me. And it's up to me to wrestle with them. Now, some stuff I may not want to
That's
admit,
all right. We're
but
not
I have
perfect.
to. I do. If I know that they are true,
Yes.
I have to wrestle with it, because those things you know are true do not go away.
That's right.
So they keep coming back until I deal with them.
Yes. They keep presenting themselves for payment. And after you came out of the meeting with this lady, you see, how did the meeting go? You was all right?
It was
You didn't
okay.
shoot her?
No, I didn't.
All
I
right.
didn't.
Let me ask you this. When you confronted her in that meeting, finally after a year, of course, I guess,
Yeah.
of all of this
All of that.
suppressed rage and anger from the perception that she has persecuted you and all that, and you went through that, and after you came out of that room, did you have a sense of relief? You all know my first question.
Well, yes, I did, because it was over.
It was
that
over.
one big event there. I know there may be others, but that big one there is gone.
Ton of pressure went off your shoulder. You did no longer have to avoid and stand on top of yourself.
No, the relief I got was that I could handle the situation without going off.
You go,
That's
okay,
what
that's
I was
great.
scared of. I was saying, I don't know what I'm going to do if I see her again in a one-on-one situation.
right.
I didn't know what I was going to
So
do.
that pressure that you had, that you were feeling, knowing that you might go out of control, that's a lot of pressure.
That was a lot
Or
of
you
pressure.
don't know,
for me.
I might go off on this one.
That's
I may
right.
feel this
I
one. That's a
don't know.
lot
I
of
didn't know what I was
pressure.
going to do.
And especially she walking around the same office with you.
Yeah.
That's every day. You don't know if you're going to kill her. But the point I'm making is that you got some form of relief from
Yeah.
some kind of pressure, didn't you?
When it was over,
Right?
yeah.
Felt good, didn't it?
Yeah.
Felt good. And when you was encountered her, were you mature with this here? Were you mature about it?
I was okay. I wasn't totally mature
All right.
about it because I'm still cautious of her, and I have to really listen to what she's saying. You know, and
Were you mature enough
was I mature enough?
for the
Yes.
situation?
Yes.
All right. You were mature enough for the situation.
Yes.
The judgment that you came to, the decision you came to approach her this time, to meet with her, and with a objective to really deal with this situation, was that good judgment?
It wasn't my decision to meet with her.
It was her
That's
decision.
It's a.
But your decision to go into the situation
Yeah, I
and
did
with
think
a different
about
attitude,
that. I did.
you
Yes.
thought about that,
Yes, I did.
and you came to some judgment on how you're going to handle this. Was it
No,
good?
no,
Okay.
no, it wasn't like that for me because I didn't want to go in with any preconceived dispositions because they make me develop attitudes. And I really wanted to arrest my attitude. I wanted to be open to really understand where this person is coming from. I didn't want to prejudge her because see then I'm going to get worked up. Because I've been worked up all this
I
time
don't mean
and I'm tired of
prejudge
being
her.
worked up.
I mean your judgment, the strategy that you adopted, which was to not judge her.
Right.
Was a good judgment.
It was the best call.
It was the best. Okay, let's use the colloquial of the hood.
What?
You had the best call. Did you use good call?
It worked for me.
All right, your call was good. All right, that's all I'm talking about. The call, you called the shot right.
It was good.
You called that shot right, didn't you? Very good. Would you be afraid to meet with her again in 6 months, next month, next week?
No, I wouldn't be afraid. I wouldn't want to. But I
You wouldn't want to, but if
I just really don't want
right,
her.
it's all right. But if you had to, if she called you back,
It would
Emma,
be
I want to
okay.
see you again.
Yeah.
Are you gonna turn in your boots?
No.
Right. You're not afraid. You got some courage. And what is she afraid of? You're not so much afraid of her. You're afraid of what you might do to her, right?
That's what I was
Right.
afraid of.
And you got the courage to go see her again with some confidence that you're not gonna shoot her,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
So you got some confidence too, didn't you? And you know the list. You all should be understanding this list. And whenever you do homework, it's important that you do the processing of the homework. Please make a note of that, because the juice of this thing is in the processing. Process that homework. You say, grade it, process it. Because you begin to get these feelings. And these are the feelings of self-respect. These are the feelings. This is what self-respect feels like. That stuff feels good. It feels good. You had a sense of freedom. You had understand? You had a sense of choice now. You can choose to speak, not to speak. Whereas just a few months before, you didn't have no choice. There was no question about it. I'm not speaking to this B-I-T-C-H, right? You have a choice now. Some days if you see her, you say hello. Some days if you don't say it. But you have a choice in the matter now. So you gave yourself back some choices. So in some sense, you liberated yourself.
That's what was important to me.
That was
I
big.
liberated myself.
You had a sense of
But it
liberation.
took a lot of work to get there, to feel that.
But was it worth it?
Yeah, it was worth it.
It's worth it.
I mean, it was there as that.
Yes. So these again are some of the payoff when you do your housework. You get this kind of stuff. And the more you do it, the more of this stuff you get. You see? And it would be really interesting now that you have the presence of mind, you could take that whole event. What is her name?
Betty.
Betty. You can call it the Betty Project or the Betty event or whatever it is. And just look at it and list those feelings and all of that as a result of her taking that money from you and taking that title from you. And look at how your negative thinking. Because remember what I said from the beginning still hold true. Betty did not depress you. All right? Betty did not make you angry. It was the spin that you put on the interpretation of that event that got you whacked out. And it was only when you went back and started changing the way you thought about this whole event that you were able to get some relief. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Essentially, that's what happened.
It took a lot of acceptance.
Yes, it
took
did.
a lot of acceptance because I can't change anybody.
Yeah.
And however they made the call, they were going to make the call. And I had to understand that and accept that. Right or wrong, it's the way it is.
And then go good with that ego mythology.
No, I didn't like it, but
You didn't like it.
it was seemed to be the truth.
Yes.
The only thing she could change was change herself.
That's the whole point. Because the reality stayed the same.
Right.
Right? And you had to give yourself some relief by changing your perception of the circumstance and the situation that life's giving. And that's the whole key that I wanted to make today, and I like to leave today thinking that I've had a little bit of success in that respect. The whole key is to alter your perception in the way you think and interpret and place meaning on the event. That's the key to this whole thing. And the only way to get good at that is you gotta practice. Practice on every opportunity. So get you all's counters, pick your area. You got plenty of them, right? There's enough to go around and look and find one and start increasing that awareness. And next week when we get together, I think we're gonna have a very interesting discussion next week. Because I know that your awareness, if you do this next week, will be a lot higher than your awareness today, and you're going to learn so much about yourself that you did not know. And if you really are ambitious, you go do some early recollection, we'll find 8 of them, and we'll pick them apart, and you're really going to have an accelerated experience. And as always, as I said from the beginning, I guarantee you, your life will not be the same. Once you've had this vision, you can never go back to